All right, this is the Week 9 media availability with offensive coordinator quarterbacks coach Jake Spavital prior to Saturday's matchup with number 24 USC. We will go ahead and get questions started with Jeff Ferrato from Cal Sports Report. Go ahead, Jeff.
Jake, obviously Fernando has 2 games under his belt now. Can you evaluate kind of how you think he's played through those games and maybe specifically what sorts of things the past week you've been working on with him to try to tweak or improve areas?
Yeah, I think, I think Fernando's handled the circumstances pretty well. He has. You go in, being a redshirt freshman, going in as your first career start versus Oregon State, I thought he handled that moment pretty well. We kind of talked before about the energy and the enthusiasm and just the optimism that he brings, which I think is a really good deal. Going into Utah, very tough opponent defensively. I thought he handled it pretty well. I thought he was battling. I think he's doing a really good job at getting to that second and third read, which is an element that's kind of been missing over the first 5 weeks of the season. But there's still some young mistakes out there. The turnovers in the Utah game were tough. The turnover in the 2 turnovers in Oregon State as well. Those are the things that we've got to minimize. And I know some of them weren't his fault, but that's kind of where we've been focusing, throughout this bye week about, when to just kind of chalk it up, throw it away, take the sack, just move on to the next progression type deal. He's still a young QB and he's still growing and learning every day, but his approach is awesome. He's had a great bye week. He got banged up a little bit in the Utah game, but, he's rehabbed. He takes a lot of pride in it. He's watching a lot of tape. Really trying to emphasize the coaching points of taking care of the football, getting through your progressions, getting through your check downs. He's doing a lot. He's doing a lot better at that. And I think the more he plays, the better he's going to be. But, he's full strength right now, and he's looking for this challenge with USC this weekend. So, fired up to watch him go again.
USC obviously has talented players throughout the roster, but they have had some real problems defensively, especially the last 4 games where they're allowing 41 points a game and they don't defend the run particularly well. Are there some things out there that present opportunities for your offense?
Yeah, I think one coming off a bye week, is going to help. The bye week came at a really good time for us, and allowed us to kind of do our self scouts and just kind of reevaluate where we're at as a program and as an offense, and allows us to get a little bit ahead on USC. It was good watching games this weekend and watching the USC game, and just kind of seeing how our game plan's matching up with what Utah is doing against them. So that was very good. But I think they're a talented offense. I think Alex Grinch, I've gone up against him before, and he's had some really good defenses. He knows what he's doing. I know the stats don't really speak for themselves right now, but they've got the talent to be pretty good defensively, and we've got to take it one play at a time, like how we've kind of been operating this entire year, one game at a time, one play at a time, and we need to worry about taking care of the football and worrying about what we can control more than anything. But I think every opportunity that we get, every team that we play, there's opportunities for us to get the ball in play, but we got to go out there and execute it and do it cleanly.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, we'll go to Matt Moreno from Rivals.
Morning, Coach. Just in terms of Fernando and his development, going against the teams he's had to go against to kind of under his first starts, how much does that fast track kind of his development in any way?
Yeah, those are 2 solid defenses that he went up against, and you got to grow up quickly, and he knows that, and he takes a lot of pride in that. He's the guy that does kind of beat himself up a little bit, the next day over mistakes that occurred during the game. During the game, he's very optimistic, about moving on to the next play. But, you go into the day after, he's very critical of himself, and you don't see him repeating those mistakes very often, going into that next game. Now, obviously, he's only done 2 games. Hopefully, he can make the corrections and mistakes that he made in the Utah game and build off that going into this week versus USC. But those are 2 quality opponents. 2 great Pac-12 defenses, and I thought he had a really good game versus Oregon State. I think there's a lot that he wishes he had back versus Utah, and I think he's ready to go rebound again this weekend. You
could have looked in a different direction and been like, "Hey, this schedule, these opponents you have coming up are just too daunting." But what did you see in him that you're like, he has enough to handle this?
Yeah, he's got a look in his eye. I think he gets more and more comfortable with being the starting quarterback right now. You see the leadership, you see the he just kind of like where the leadership where he's going to reload plays if he's not comfortable with it, if he doesn't like the timing of something, if he doesn't like how something looks, he takes the initiative and goes ahead and reloads it, which is going to be very good because he wants to master every single play that's on that call sheet, and he wants to know the ins and outs of it. He wants to know like the worst case scenarios. He wants to know just why we're calling it and when we're calling it. So like he's going to continue to keep growing and maturing off of just the reps, but he's got the mindset needed, to face these defenses that we're going to see. It's a really tough league, as you know. It's a fun league, and I think if you look at where he's at, he's got 3 top 25 opponents back to back to back for his first 3 career starts. So he understands the challenge ahead. He understands what type of conference this is, and he knows that he needs to play better, and he's really on that path to constantly prove everybody wrong and just prove to himself that he can play with these guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll go to Steve Kroner at the SF Chronicle.
Yeah, Jake, good morning. In the last 2 games, just the look of your offense certainly has been more consistent, more polished maybe than it was the first 5 games. But the one guy whose production has gone dramatically down from the first 5 games to the last 2 is Jeremiah Hunter. How much is teams really focusing their defense on stopping him, and how much of it is the change of quarterback?
Yeah, that was a good kind of study that we did. You noticed that anyways, but the bye week was good to look at the self-scout and kind of look at where our targets are going and how and what our tendencies are. You look at what Utah did. Their whole plan was to take Jeremiah out of the game. So they bracketed him the entire game, which led for, I think it was 12 targets that Taj Davis had, where his production increased because literally they're loading the box up to try to take away J-Knot, and then they're trying to bracket Jeremiah the entire game. So that had to leave opportunities for someone else to step up and make plays. But we've got to be more creative and find ways to get Jeremiah, touches. Because if you looked at our tendencies, especially in those first 5 weeks, they knew when the ball was going to Jeremiah and what we were trying to accomplish. And now sitting back over the bye week, it's allowed us to kind of rethink through a lot of things of how we can get him some more touches and get him, where he's the primary target, where they're not taking him away from a double team. And I think that's something that's been great for this bye week for us to kind of look through it all, because he is a dynamic player and we need to get him his touches and his targets. So it's been good to look through it over the past week now to get him in a position where he can get those touches needed.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, we'll go back to Jeff Ferrato.
Jake, you've coached a lot of really good quarterbacks, including a Heisman Trophy winner. Wonder what you think of the Heisman Trophy winner you're going to face you guys will see on Saturday, and how does he compare with those guys? Yeah,
you're talking about Caleb Williams. Obviously, he's a pretty impressive player now. I think we all see that. I'm a big fan of quarterback play. So I always like to go through and watch, the Michael Penix Juniors and, obviously Caleb Williams. There's a lot of great quarterbacks in this league, so you get a lot of crossover tape. But just watching him and how he just handles the offense, and again, our offenses are very similar. We're all kind of cut from the same cloth, but I see his ability how strong he is in the pocket and how tough he is. Like when you think he's sacked, he finds a way to get out of those moments. And he's got this unique ability where he can run full speed and he doesn't even lift up his non-throwing shoulder to throw the ball. He can just flick it out there and it goes 60, 70 yards, and it's a pretty accurate throw. So it's going to be fun watching this guy play because, you watch a lot of the crossover tape, the height. He's won a Heisman Trophy. He's projected probably the first quarterback taken in the draft next year. There's a lot of hype around him that's, it's well deserved. And it'll be fun to watch him. But yeah, he's up there now as one of the best out there to do it. And you talk to a lot of the guys that it's around him, and they say, yeah, he's capable of being one of the better ones that they've ever been around.
Is he similar to any of the guys you've coached?
Yeah, it's kind of tough. If you look at Johnny was more of a dual threat type of guy, and same thing with Kyler Murray. Caleb Williams, you can tell, wants to stay in the pocket, and I think that's what he's been working on a lot too. It's just showing the way to get through progressions and use his checkdowns and utilize his ability when it's needed. But I think he's just a rare guy. I think he's got the size of a great pocket passer, and then he's got the ability and athleticism to make a lot of plays with his feet. So I think he's a very dynamic player. I'm really curious to watch him go down in person for the first time.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, back to Matt Moreno.
Coach Wilcox brought up Bear Alexander, their defensive lineman. What kind of challenge does the offensive line have on its hands this week?
Yeah, he's a very talented guy, very active. I think what they do a good job of up front is like they get hit with some things where they get out of their gaps, but like they jump the box up so much where they let those D linemen play freely. And Barry Alexander is a very dominant force up front, and you just see how they are statistically. They're one of the top in terms of getting like tackles for losses because they're just doing a lot of games and twists and stunts and everything up front. And then you can tell they got a lot of confidence in that defensive line. When it gets, the main thing is they don't want to get to that second level. When they get to the second level, that's when the explosive runs occur on them. But the hard part is getting to that second level. Bear Alexander is a guy that our O-line has been very well aware of. And we've watched a lot of tape on him and put a big emphasis on the D-line and what they're trying to accomplish. So it's going to be a very tough challenge for that front for us going into this week.
You mentioned the South Scout during the bye week. Was there anything kind of glaring that stood out to you that you're like, we need to do this better in the second half of the season when you were able to watch the tape and review everything?
Yeah, it was kind of a unique cell scout, because we played three quarterbacks now, and you've got Sam and his style of play, to Ben and his style of play, and then the last 2 weeks have been Fernando. And you kind of looked at like the tendencies, like what Steve was saying earlier about taking Jeremiah out of the game, and how they do that. I think that's going to change a little bit more with the style of play of Fernando. With him being able to throw a little bit more quick game and disperse the ball more evenly and kind of spray it all over the field, along with our run game with J.I. I think it's going to make defenses not just always tee off on the run and take Jeremiah out. They're going to have to account for a lot of other things, and that's been a really good deal for looking at this cell scout over this past week. And I think over these next 5 games, our last 5 games of the season, you're going to see like kind of the numbers and the stats kind of skew a little bit different, just based off of Fernando's play and then what he's capable of and what he's good at. So I think naturally the cell scout, if you're scouting us right now, I think it's 3 different teams you're looking at because you got 3 different quarterbacks going.
All right, we'll go back to Jeff Ferrato for a final question. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, Jake, I guess I should have asked this question of Peter, but how did Cal miss on recruiting a guy named Bear?
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I don't know. Isn't that just like a must that you got to recruit that guy, regardless if you look at his tape or not? His name's Bear, so you need to go after. There was a guy like at one time when we recruited named Moose. So I was like, well, again, he was an offensive line, so we might as well recruit a guy named Moose, right? But yeah, exactly. Bear Alexander. What a great name, and to live up to the expectations of it, he's a really good player too.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, guys, that'll wrap us up for today. Go ahead and get your requests in for tomorrow. We'll talk to you then. Thanks.